Hi and welcome back. This is COMM1160 week 5 video number 2. And in this video we're going to talk about taking notes while you're reading. Most people don't take notes while they're reading. So if you actually observe people, especially when the campus is open, you'll see that people sit with textbooks or books or articles that they're reading, and they're literally just reading. So they're not writing anything down. Most people do not take notes when they're reading. So most people just sit with an article or a book and read through it and never actually take any notes. They're really missing out because note taking is something that can really help you. You will see a lot of people highlighting, and highlighting is both good and bad. I love highlighters. So I love all office supplies. I'm one of those nerds that really likes paper and pens and all sorts of things like that. I love highlighters. They come in beautiful colors. You can get all sorts of really cute highlighters. The problem with them is that you need to use them carefully. So I know when the campus is open, I'm often walking around and I'm just sort of watching students, and I'll see students with their textbooks and they're literally highlighting as they're reading every single line. So as they're highlighting like the entire book or the entire article as they're reading. That's actually bad for you because it's not making you make choices about what to highlight. Highlighting is good when you're judicious with it. So when you restrain yourself and say, I'm only going to highlight main ideas. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to get carried away with the beautiful colors and the fun of using a marker and everything else. And I'm going to be really strict about what I highlight. So I don't discourage highlighting, but I say, be careful with it. The best thing though is note taking. And note taking can be on the computer or it can be by hand. But I will tell you that most experts recommend doing it by hand. They say there's some kind of magic that happens in your brain when you actually write on paper. And I know this is true because whenever I go to the grocery store, if I handwrite a note, even if I leave that note, I forget and I leave that note at home, I actually remember what it is that I need to pick up. If I do it on my phone or I do it on the computer, I always end up forgetting something. And if I don't take notes at all, if I don't make a list at all, I don't remember a thing. I walk into the grocery store, I have no idea what I'm there for. So there is something to be said for the old-fashioned way of doing things by hand. But again, I am going to leave it up to you because I recognize a lot of you are a different generation than I am. So you may actually be better with computer note taking. I don't know. But most studies have shown that you get the best recall and the best understanding when you do it by hand. Note taking is proven to enhance recall, improve understanding, and reduce the need for rereading. There have been lots of scientific studies that have been done where they've tested people and they've realized that their ability to recall and retain information is really improved when they write stuff down. I was a slow adopter of note taking. So when I was in high school and when I was in the first few years of post-secondary, I really resisted the idea of note taking. I was sure that I could just read and remember. But as I've had more experience, I recognize that note taking really is important. And that when I started taking really good notes, my ability to retain and recall information shot up dramatically. And I saw that change in my grades. So, note taking is not just for journal articles, not just for when you're doing your own independent research for a project, but also when you're going through your textbooks. Okay, especially important when you're in a program where you're doing a lot of reading. Many of you are in nursing, a lot of you are thinking about going into nursing. You do an awful lot of reading and you got to retain a lot of information. Note taking helps. It may seem like it slows you down. I think that's why I resisted it at first. I thought, oh, I don't have the extra time to do this. But it really pays off because then you'll find the information is encoded in your brain and it's less of a task to study when you're getting ready for tests or exams or writing papers. When we talk about note-taking, there's some general strategies that you can keep in mind. The first thing is that what you want to aim to do is you want to paraphrase information, not just copy. Okay, so read something and then use your own words to note it down. Again, there's some kind of magic that happens in the brain with paraphrasing. It's like as if, your brain has to wrestle with the information to then be able to express it in a different way. And that somehow seems to solidify the information in the brain. You also want to focus on main points. Okay, so don't get carried away with the smaller points. You want to focus on big main ideas. You want to compress ideas in your own words. Okay, so remember, the point of note taking is to have sort of like a shorter version of the information that's contained in an article or a chapter. So you really want to focus on compression. You want to make things quick, so use short forms or visual markers like arrows and stars, okay, whatever works for you to draw your attention. The other thing you should do is consider using an accepted note-taking strategy. And there are various strategies that are out there. If you look on the internet, there's many different strategies or systems for note-taking. My favorite is the Cornell method, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But people like different methods. So you can take a look and see if there's something that you find particularly attractive. I'm going to ask you to at least give the Cornell method a try at some point to see how you like it and to see how it works for you. So I'm going to switch over now. I'm going into the file that I put up for you, Cornell example. And this is an example of notes that are taken in Cornell format. Now, Cornell format was invented way back in the 1940s, so before any of us were born. And the reason they were invented was because students, even in the 1940s, were complaining about the amount of reading that they had to do and how difficult it was to remember and retain that information. So this is an age-old problem. You're not the first one to go through it, to say, oh, I do all of this reading, and then the minute I finish reading, I forget what I've read. Cornell tries to deal with that particular issue. And there's some magic to it, okay? There's some brain games with Cornell that kind of tricks your brain into remembering information. It works in a 3-part system. So just moving the cursor here on the screen, and I'll show you the 3 different parts. This area here, the big area, is called the record section. And in the record section, what the Cornell method says that you do is you go through an article or a chapter, okay, or whatever it is that you're looking at, and you note stuff down in point form. So you can see this person here, right, has done bullet points. They're just pulling main pieces of information as they're reading through the article. So this is the first part that's filled out. We're sort of accustomed to this form of note-taking, right? So we've all probably done that form of note-taking, one or the other. But the magic of the Cornell system are these other 2 parts. So this one here and this one down at the bottom. This section here, okay, is called the recall section. And in this section, what you do is you write down questions or write down keywords that relates to the information that's over on the other side in the record section. You can do it. I like the question format. So it's like Jeopardy style questions. You take a look at your notes and you look for pattern. Okay, so this person, if you just take a look at the first few links that are up there, bipolar affects 2% of the Canadian population, 62% women, 38% men, can affect children, affects all classes and types of people. All of these, there is a pattern to this. All of this answers the question, who gets bipolar disorder? Okay, so you find what the commonality is in the notes, and then over on the side, you write a question. The magic here is that oftentimes you can predict test and exam questions simply by looking for these patterns, right? So test and exam questions usually are about pattern anyways. So you might find that, you're even able to, guess ahead, right? What'll be on a test or what'll be on an exam. And then you go through. So as you're seeing different patterns going through, okay, you put in things on the side. Again, you could just use keywords if you wanted to, or you can use questions, okay, entirely up to you. But sitting down with those notes and looking through them and looking for pattern really helps. Our brains love pattern, right? We love things fitting together, and our brain loves to put things in little categories. So this actually really works, okay, in terms of getting your mind to settle on stuff. The next part of the Cornell system, right, is the summary section. And this is also something magic, okay, that goes with the Cornell system. The Cornell method says for each page of notes that you take, and you might take multiple pages of notes as you're reading an article or a chapter, but for each page, at the bottom, you summarize in your own words the content of the notes above. So you write a sentence or two where you summarize what it is that you've taken notes on. And again, there's something in that active summarization of forcing your brain, okay, to think about it as a whole and to come up with a way to express it in your own words that really helps to crystallize the information. When people use the Cornell method, they oftentimes are surprised just how long they remember that information. I was in school, it's been maybe 20 years or so for me now, right? I still remember some of the stuff that I wrote down as I was taking notes when I was going through textbooks and things like that. So it's lasted a really long time. It really has imprinted in my brain. And I think it was this note taking, this Cornell method, that did that for me, that helped me retain that information for so long. It's a great system. Okay, if you want to learn more about it, you can certainly look on the web. There's lots of information about Cornell. As I said to you, there's also other strategies or other systems that you can use. So if you think this system is not so great for you, look at a few others. I'll even just open up the web right now, and I'll just do a quick web search on note-taking strategies, and you'll see just how much comes up. Tons of information. Note-taking strategies. Okay, so, there's this kind where you do it sort of visually, right, with circles. This kind, wow, it looks like this person's really done a lot of drawing and stuff like that. Maybe if you're artsy, that might be the method for you. But there's all sorts of, okay, information about note-taking. Here, excuse me, it looks like this goes through all sorts of different methods, including the Cornell, the outlining method, the mapping method, the charting method. Find one that works for you. Okay, like I said, my favorite is Cornell. I've found that really works well in a post-secondary setting, but entirely up to you what kind of a system you might want to use. The one thing I will tell you as your friend and not as your professor, it really does work, and it really is worth the time. You will notice, okay, that your grades really improve when you do note-taking rather than just passive reading. If you want to use the Cornell system, what I have done is I've created a template. I'm going to show you that now in Word. And I've saved it as a PDF so that you can use it. So that if you want to, if you're like me and very type A and like to keep organized, you can actually print this out and use it as notepaper. But you don't have to be fancy. You don't have to use a template. You can simply use regular lined paper and just run a line down the side so that you have your recall section. Then the regular lines would be your record section. And then just at the bottom, run a line and write your little summary. So I'm going to ask you to give it a try, okay? I'm not giving you an assignment or anything, but maybe try with one of the readings that you're doing for your other classes this week, working through with the Cornell method and seeing if it actually improves your ability to understand and your ability to recall information. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost willing to bet on it, that you'll find that your understanding and your comprehension really improves if you try this method. So give it a shot. I'm also going to encourage you to use it when we get to our larger project next week, because it gives you, again, some kind of strategy, right, to be able to attack articles and attack chapters. In our next video, we're going to go over some strategies for summarization, which is the next activity that people normally do after note taking. So I'll talk to you in that video, take a little break, and come back, and we'll go through some new material.